So my role at Merck within our Global Diversity, Equity, Inclusion COE is really I'm aligned to a customer, a line of business, but I'm also responsible for partnering with a lot of our COEs, our talent acquisition COE, our leadership, learning and development, because each of those COEs are putting into the systems, processes, policies. My role is to really ensure that when we look at those systems, practices, and policies, that they are most inclusive. So while I didn't have an influence on this outcome, an example is a policy around maternity leave. Well, families come in all different types these days. So we no longer call it maternity leave, we refer to it as family leave. Right? That's a more inclusive reference to a policy. When we think about talent acquisition, we're actually influencing, and again, this is a partnership. When you look at job postings, are your job postings posted in a way that attracts or uses language that is more masculine versus feminine? There's no shortage of technology that allows us to understand sort of that good intention that might be falling flat. Right? So how do you make these things more inclusive? That's part of my role. Trying to bring to light, help leaders at all levels be better leaders when it comes to inclusive leadership. And for me, that is such an opportunity, because I think as people, we hunger for that. And we've survived a pandemic. We still see social injustice. We still see hate crimes. The mental health aspect of people is people are experiencing mental health issues based on work, based on their experiences at work, far more than they ever have been reported. I came into this being in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space because we recognized at Merck that our systems, whether it's systems of talent attraction, recognition, promotion, compensation, we needed to make sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion was embedded in it. So that was the intent. Let's work with WorkHuman to leverage these in the flow of work, the opportunity to remind people, are you being equitable? Are you being inclusive, both in terms of who you're extending recognition to and the words that you use to recognize them? I think it's really important to understand that people receive things differently, words matter. And so just these nudges, I like to call them nudges. We talked a lot about this pop-up, right? You can choose to click on the pop-up, or you can choose to, no, I don't need that. I'm just gonna move on. But we saw most people were clicking on the pop-up. And that nudge of, are you being inclusive in terms of who's being recognized? Are you being equitable in terms of giving one person a certain amount versus another? Does that make sense relative to their contribution? And then when you go to write the recognition, actually thinking about the words. Are you sending a message that is the most inclusive it could be? We know not everyone clicks on the nudges and takes the nudges, but those who do, it's demonstrated that they are making changes. They are accepting, it's challenging their thinking. And to me, I've always, in partnership with WorkHuman, have thought about, at the heart of this is humans, right? Understanding how to reach them, motivate them, inspire them. This is just another way to check your thinking, consciously check your mindset, because those recognition opportunities are moments that really matter. They matter to an individual. I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel like I belong, I feel like I'm adding value, and it's appreciated. So what comes to mind is really getting people to understand the value, right? Authenticity is so important. We hear a lot about that in this space, particularly in my role. Ensuring that people are authentic, that they're vulnerable, that they're curious. Sometimes we hide behind what we think we need to be. We don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to do the wrong thing to be perceived as not inclusive. Make it be something that enables people, vulnerability is power. Authenticity, people can see through not being authentic. Just thanking somebody for the sake of thanking them because it's performative or obligatory, but actually catching people and calling to mind the impact that they had, the outcome that they influenced. So I think our journey has been one that, from a DEI perspective, our ability to understand who's being recognized, men versus women. What about our communities of color, right? Our colleagues who maybe come from a different background, a different generation, who's receiving, who's sending. We can actually motivate people to say, hey, you might be a little stingy on your recognition, you could do a little better. Versus other groups like, wow, you're really out there. Is it adding value? Are we seeing more or something less based on how you're showing up with your people? This provides an opportunity for every employee to sort of have an impact on culture, to catch people doing things right and recognizing it versus a focus on, we didn't get this done, you didn't do that, but really bringing to attention that which adds value to the organization.